A teacher called the wrong parent's number. That stranger became her partner for life. There are moments in existence when the universe orchestrates connections so perfectly timed, so beautifully aligned with divine purpose, that they seem to transcend the boundaries of coincidence and enter the realm of pure cosmic intelligence. What appears to be a simple mistake, a wrong number dialed in the routine course of daily responsibilities, becomes the sacred gateway through which two souls recognize each other across the vast expanse of human experience. This isn't just a story about romance or chance encounters. It's a profound demonstration of how divine consciousness operates through the most ordinary circumstances to weave extraordinary destinies together. The evening started like countless others for Sarah Mitchell, a dedicated third-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary, sitting at her kitchen table with a stack of progress reports and a list of parent phone numbers that needed calling before the weekend arrived. The autumn light was fading through her apartment windows as she methodically worked through her contact list, discussing Johnny's improvement in mathematics, Emma's exceptional creativity in writing assignments, and Marcus's need for additional reading support at home. Each conversation was a bridge between school and family, part of her commitment to ensuring every child received the support they needed to flourish academically and emotionally. When she reached the 7th number on her list, intending to call Mrs. Peterson about her daughter Ashley's upcoming science project, Sarah carefully dialed what she believed were the correct digits. The phone rang twice before a warm, masculine voice answered with a simple, "Hello," and Sarah launched into her practiced introduction. "Good evening, this is Sarah Mitchell, Ashley's teacher at Riverside Elementary. I wanted to discuss her progress on the ecosystem project we assigned last week." There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by gentle laughter that somehow contained both confusion and genuine warmth. "I think you might have the wrong number," the voice said, "but please don't hang up yet. I don't have a daughter named Ashley, but I have to say you sound like exactly the kind of teacher I would have wanted when I was struggling through school." Most people would have apologized quickly and disconnected, but something in the stranger's tone made Sarah pause. There was a quality in his voice that suggested not just politeness, but genuine interest, a warmth that seemed to reach through the telephone connection and touch something deep within her consciousness. Instead of offering a hurried apology and ending the call, she found herself responding with unexpected openness. "I'm so sorry for bothering you. I must have written down the wrong number, but thank you for being so kind about it." "No bother at all," came the reply. "Actually, this might be the best wrong number I've ever received. My name is David, by the way, David Chen, and I have to ask what made you become a teacher. There's something in your voice that suggests you really care about these kids." What followed was a conversation that neither of them expected wanted to end or could fully explain. David Chen, as Sarah discovered, was a pediatric nurse at the city's children's hospital, someone whose life was also dedicated to caring for young people during some of their most vulnerable moments. As they talked, they discovered parallel paths of service, similar values, and a shared understanding of what it meant to dedicate your life to nurturing others. The conversation meandered through topics both profound and mundane: their respective careers, favorite books, travel, dreams, family backgrounds, and the small daily joys that made their work meaningful despite its challenges. David shared stories of young patients who had taught him about resilience and hope, while Sarah described breakthrough moments when struggling students suddenly grasped difficult concepts. They discovered mutual appreciation for quiet Saturday mornings, obscure documentary films, ethnic cuisine hiking trails, and the peculiar satisfaction that comes from knowing you've made a positive difference in someone's day. Neither of them looked at the clock until Sarah suddenly realized they had been talking for over 2 hours, and even then the revelation brought reluctance rather than relief. "I should probably let you go," she said, though her tone suggested the opposite desire. I still have 3 more parents to call tonight. Of course, David replied, but after a brief pause, he continued with careful vulnerability. This might be completely inappropriate, and please feel free to say no. But would you be interested in continuing this conversation over coffee sometime? I know this is unusual circumstances, but I haven't enjoyed talking to someone this much in longer than I care to admit. The question hung in the air between them, carrying weight that neither fully understood at the time. Sarah felt her heart accelerate in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine and everything to do with the recognition that something significant was being offered, not just a date, but a doorway into possibility that felt both thrilling and somehow inevitable. I would like that very much, she heard herself saying, and as they exchanged actual contact information and made plans to meet at a small cafe downtown the following Saturday, both sensed they were participating in something much larger than a spontaneous social arrangement. The week between their phone conversation and their coffee meeting passed with unusual awareness for both Sarah and David. They found themselves thinking about their upcoming encounter at unexpected moments. Sarah would pause while grading papers to remember something witty David had said about hospital bureaucracy, while David would catch himself smiling during patient rounds as he recalled Sarah's passionate description of a student's breakthrough in reading comprehension. When Saturday arrived, they recognized each other immediately, despite having never met, not through physical description, but through the same warmth and authenticity that had made their phone conversation so compelling. The coffee meeting extended into lunch. Lunch flowed into an afternoon walk through the city's botanical gardens, and the afternoon walk led to dinner at a small Italian restaurant, where they continued conversations that seemed to have no natural ending point. Over the following months, their connection deepened through regular phone calls, weekend adventures, and the gradual integration of their separate lives into something that felt increasingly like a shared journey. Sarah introduced David to her students during a career day presentation about healthcare, while David invited Sarah to attend a hospital fundraiser where she met his colleagues and witnessed firsthand his dedication to pediatric nursing. Their relationship developed with the kind of natural progression that felt both effortless and profound, built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared values, and genuine enjoyment of each other's company. They discovered compatibility in areas both significant and trivial, similar approaches to problem-solving, complementary senses of humor, aligned perspectives on family and career, and even parallel preferences for quiet evening activities over bustling social scenes. But beyond the surface compatibility lay something deeper that both recognized but found difficult to articulate. There was a sense of rightness about their connection that transcended logical explanation, a feeling that they had been brought together by forces larger than chance or personal choice. David often described it as feeling like he had been waiting for Sarah without knowing what he was waiting for, while Sarah spoke of a sense of completion, as if a puzzle piece she hadn't known was missing had suddenly clicked into place. The spiritual dimensions of their meeting began revealing themselves as they grew more comfortable sharing their inner lives with each other. Both had experienced periods of feeling disconnected from purpose, despite loving their careers, moments of wondering whether there was something more meaningful waiting to be discovered in their lives. Both had prayed, meditated, and hoped for partnership that would enhance rather than complicate their individual journeys of growth and service. Sarah shared that she had actually been asking the universe for guidance about whether to continue teaching or explore other career options when she made that fateful phone call. She had been feeling isolated in her dedication to education, wondering whether her efforts truly made lasting difference in her students' lives. Meeting David had renewed her passion for teaching by showing her that there were others equally committed to service-oriented careers, and that partnership could support rather than compete with professional purpose. David revealed that he had been going through his own crisis of faith about whether his work in pediatric nursing was his true calling or simply a job he had fallen into through circumstance. He had been questioning whether he was making the impact he hoped to have on young lives and wondering whether he should pursue additional training or consider career changes. His connection with Sarah had helped him recognize that his doubt wasn't about his profession, but about his isolation, and that sharing his experiences with someone who understood service-oriented work had rekindled his enthusiasm for nursing. As their relationship progressed through seasons both literal and metaphorical, they began recognizing patterns that suggested their meeting had been part of a larger orchestration of events. Sarah's decision to call parents that particular evening had been prompted by an unusual schedule change. Her normal calling day had been disrupted by a school assembly that ran late, pushing her parent communications to Friday instead of Wednesday. David's presence at home to answer the phone had been equally uncharacteristic. He normally worked evening shifts on Fridays, but had requested schedule changes to attend a continuing education workshop that had ultimately been canceled at the last minute. The convergence of circumstances that enabled their connection revealed layers of synchronicity that neither could dismiss as pure coincidence. The wrong number Sarah dialed differed from the correct number by only 2 digits, a transposition that could easily be attributed to fatigue, but seemed remarkably fortuitous in retrospect. The fact that David not only answered the phone, but chose to engage in extended conversation contradicted his usual patterns of avoiding unexpected calls from unknown numbers. Friends and family members began commenting on the transformation they witnessed in both Sarah and David as their relationship deepened. Sarah's colleagues noticed increased energy and creativity in her classroom management, while her students seemed to respond to a new warmth and confidence in her teaching style. David's supervisor at the hospital observed enhanced patience and communication skills in his interactions with young patients and their families, as if his personal happiness was overflowing into professional excellence. The changes weren't just external, but reflected internal shifts that both Sarah and David experienced as they learned to see themselves through loving eyes and supportive partnership. Sarah discovered confidence in areas where she had previously felt insecure, while David developed communication skills he hadn't known he possessed. Their individual growth seemed accelerated by their connection, as if loving relationship provided safe space for exploring previously hidden aspects of their personalities and capabilities. The engagement, when it came after 18 months of deepening partnership, felt like natural progression rather than dramatic life change. David proposed during a weekend camping trip to the mountains. They had both mentioned loving during their first phone conversation, presenting a ring he had designed to reflect Sarah's preference for simple elegance over ostentatious display. His proposal speech referenced their unconventional beginning, expressing gratitude not just for her love, but for her willingness to see divine purpose in apparent mistakes. Sarah's acceptance came with tears of joy and recognition that she was saying yes, not just to marriage, but to a life partnership that felt aligned with her deepest values and highest aspirations. She had prayed for many years to find someone who would support her dedication to service while bringing out the best in her personality, and David's presence in her life had exceeded her most optimistic hopes for what love could provide. The wedding planning process became an opportunity to explore the spiritual dimensions of their connection more deeply. Both felt called to create a ceremony that honored not just their love for each other, but their shared commitment to service and their recognition that their meeting had been orchestrated by intelligence beyond their personal control. They chose readings from various wisdom traditions that spoke to the mystery of divine timing, the purpose of loving partnership, and the responsibility that comes with recognizing sacred connection. Their wedding day dawned with the kind of perfect weather that felt like blessing from the universe itself. The ceremony held in Sarah's childhood church, with reception in the same botanical gardens where they had spent their first afternoon together, brought together communities from both their lives, Sarah's fellow teachers and former students alongside David's hospital colleagues, and the families of young patients he had served with particular dedication. The officiant, Sarah's longtime pastor, who had watched her grow from uncertain young woman into confident educator, spoke about the mystery of divine timing and the way that apparent accidents often reveal themselves as sacred appointments when viewed with sufficient perspective. He challenged the couple to see their wrong number meeting not as romantic coincidence, but as evidence of cosmic intelligence operating through ordinary circumstances to fulfill extraordinary purposes. The reception featured stories from friends and family members who had witnessed the transformation that Sarah and David had experienced through their partnership. Sarah's principal shared how her teaching had reached new levels of effectiveness and creativity after meeting David, while David's supervisor described improvements in his patient care that seemed directly connected to the happiness and stability his relationship provided. But perhaps the most moving moment came when Ashley Peterson, the student whose mother Sarah had originally intended to call on that fateful evening, presented the couple with a handmade card expressing gratitude for their example of how mistakes can become miracles. The child had been following their love story through Sarah's occasional classroom references and had convinced her mother to help create this special wedding surprise. The honeymoon spent traveling through national parks they had dreamed of visiting during their lengthy phone conversations provided time for deeper reflection on the journey that had brought them together and the future they hoped to create as partners. They talked about the responsibility they felt to honor the extraordinary circumstances of their meeting by building a marriage that would serve something larger than their individual happiness. Both felt called to see their partnership as a platform for enhanced service, rather than retreat from their respective commitments to helping others. Sarah spoke of feeling more equipped to support struggling students because her own experience of unexpected blessing had deepened her faith in positive possibilities, while David described increased empathy for patients and families because his personal happiness had created emotional space for holding others' suffering without becoming overwhelmed. As they settled into married life, patterns emerged that reinforced their sense of having been brought together for purposes beyond personal fulfillment. Their home became a gathering place for other service-oriented couples seeking community and support for maintaining idealism in challenging professions. Sarah's classroom became known for its family-like atmosphere that seemed to reflect the stability and love she had found in her personal life, while David's reputation for exceptional patient care continued growing as his enhanced emotional resources enabled deeper connections with the children and families he served. The first major test of their partnership came during Sarah's third year of teaching, when budget cuts threatened her position and forced difficult decisions about career direction. Instead of the crisis fragmenting their relationship, they discovered that their bond provided strength for navigating uncertainty together. David's unwavering support for Sarah's professional calling, combined with his practical assistance in exploring alternatives, enabled her to transition to a position at a school for children with learning disabilities, where her gifts could serve students with greater needs. Similarly, when David considered pursuing advanced training to become a nurse practitioner, Sarah's encouragement and willingness to adjust their lifestyle to accommodate additional schooling enabled him to expand his capacity for service. Their individual career developments became joint endeavors with each partner's growth, enhancing rather than competing with the other's professional journey. Friends and colleagues began referring to them as an example of how partnership could amplify rather than diminish individual purpose and effectiveness. Their wrong number meeting had become legendary in both their professional communities, cited as evidence that divine intelligence operates through ordinary circumstances when people remain open to recognizing sacred appointments disguised as random encounters. The spiritual practices they developed together reflected their shared understanding that their relationship served purposes larger than personal happiness. They established regular rhythms of gratitude, service, and reflection that honored both their individual growth and their joint commitment to contributing positively to the world around them. Their evening conversations often included sharing stories from their respective workplaces, offering mutual support for the challenges of service-oriented careers and brainstorming ways to enhance their effectiveness as helpers and healers. As their marriage matured through its early years, both Sarah and David began experiencing what they could only describe as enhanced intuition about each other's needs, challenges, and opportunities. Sarah would often call David at the hospital during particularly stressful shifts, without knowing consciously that he needed encouragement, while David frequently arrived home with exactly the kind of support Sarah needed after difficult days with challenging students. This intuitive connection extended beyond their personal relationship to their professional effectiveness. Sarah found herself better able to sense which students needed extra attention or different teaching approaches, while David developed enhanced ability to comfort young patients and communicate effectively with worried parents. Both attributed these improvements partly to the emotional security their marriage provided, and partly to what felt like expanded consciousness that resulted from their loving partnership. The decision to start a family came naturally after several years of marriage, though both approached parenthood with awareness of the responsibility to raise children who would continue their legacy of service and purpose. Sarah's pregnancy brought new depth to her understanding of child development and learning, while David's experience supporting her through pregnancy and childbirth enhanced his skills with pediatric patients and their families. Their daughter Emma arrived during a spring snowstorm that required emergency delivery assistance from colleagues at David's hospital, creating an immediate connection between their personal family and their professional community of healers and educators. From her earliest days, Emma seemed to embody the love and intentionality that had brought her parents together, displaying unusual calm and responsiveness that delighted everyone who met her. Parenthood revealed new dimensions of the partnership that Sarah and David had built through their unconventional beginning. They discovered complementary parenting styles that reflected their individual professional skills while supporting each other through the challenges of balancing family life with demanding careers. Sarah's teaching experience provided practical knowledge about child development, while David's medical background offered reassurance about health concerns and childhood illnesses. As Emma grew from infant to toddler to preschooler, she seemed naturally drawn to helping others and showing compassion for anyone who appeared sad or hurt. Her parents recognized in her behavior the same service orientation that had defined their own lives and brought them together, suggesting that children might inherit not just genetic material, but also spiritual inclinations toward particular forms of contribution to the world. The storytelling tradition that developed in their household always included the tale of how Mommy and Daddy met through a magic phone call that connected two people who were meant to be together. Emma loved hearing about the wrong number that became the right connection, and her questions about the story often led to deeper conversations about how the universe works in mysterious ways to bring people together when the timing is perfect. Sarah's students also became part of the extended family story, with many of them maintaining contact throughout their school years and beyond. Several graduates specifically credited their time in Sarah's classroom with inspiring their own career choices in education, healthcare, and other service professions. The stability and love they witnessed in their teacher's life seemed to provide a model for the kind of relationships and life purpose they wanted to create for themselves. David's young patients and their families similarly became part of the extended community that surrounded Sarah and David's marriage. Many families requested David specifically when their children needed hospital care, knowing that his calm presence and genuine compassion would help make difficult experiences more manageable. His reputation for exceptional care seemed directly connected to the happiness and stability his marriage provided. The 10th anniversary of their wedding arrived with celebration that included not just immediate family, but also representatives from both their professional communities who had been touched by the example of their partnership. The renewal of vows they chose to mark the occasion included specific gratitude for the wrong number that had initiated their journey together, and commitment to continue serving as an example of how love can enhance rather than compete with individual purpose and calling. By this time, their story had spread beyond their immediate circles to become something of a legend in both the education and healthcare communities in their city. Young professionals dealing with the isolation that sometimes accompanies service-oriented careers often sought them out for advice about balancing personal relationships with professional dedication, and their counsel consistently emphasized that the right partnership would support rather than undermine commitment to serving others. The challenges they faced as their marriage matured, financial pressures, career decisions, extended family issues, and the normal stresses of raising children became opportunities to demonstrate the strength of the foundation they had built through their unusual beginning. Each difficulty they navigated successfully seemed to deepen their appreciation for the mysterious circumstances that had brought them together, and their commitment to honoring that gift through continued growth and service. Sarah's evolution from uncertain young teacher to master educator paralleled David's development from competent nurse to recognized leader in pediatric healthcare, and both transformations seemed accelerated by the support and encouragement their marriage provided. Colleagues in both professions began recognizing them as examples of how personal happiness could enhance rather than detract from professional excellence and community contribution. The community involvement that naturally flowed from their shared values included volunteering with organizations that supported both education and healthcare initiatives. They became known as a couple who could be counted on for thoughtful contribution to causes that served children and families, and their joint involvement seemed to amplify the impact they could have made as individuals working separately. Emma's elementary school years brought new appreciation for Sarah's professional expertise as she watched her mother's colleagues interact with her daughter. The other teachers who knew the family's story often commented on how Emma seemed to embody the best qualities of both parents, Sarah's nurturing patience combined with David's calm strength and natural empathy for others who were struggling or hurting. The mentoring relationships that developed naturally as Sarah and David gained experience and recognition in their respective fields often included sharing their story as an example of how openness to unexpected opportunities could transform entire life trajectories. Young professionals struggling with loneliness or doubt about their career choices found encouragement in hearing how a simple wrong number had initiated a partnership that enhanced every aspect of two lives. As their marriage approached its 15th anniversary, both Sarah and David began reflecting more deeply on the spiritual implications of their meeting and partnership. They had always recognized elements of divine timing in their connection, but maturity brought increased appreciation for the ways their love had served not just their personal happiness, but also their capacity to serve others more effectively. The realization that their wrong number meeting had occurred during a period when both were questioning their career directions seemed increasingly significant in retrospect. Sarah's doubt about continuing in education and David's uncertainty about nursing had been resolved not through finding new careers, but through finding partnership that renewed their passion for their existing callings. Their love had served as confirmation that they were indeed on the right professional paths. The influence their story had on others became more apparent as former students, patients, and colleagues began sharing how witnessing their partnership had affected their own decisions about relationships, careers, and life priorities. The example of two people who had found each other through apparent accident but recognized divine appointment had inspired others to remain open to unexpected opportunities and to trust in the possibility of meaningful connection. Emma's growing awareness of her parents' unusual love story coincided with her developing interest in both teaching and healthcare, suggesting that children might indeed inherit not just career interests, but also spiritual orientation toward service that transcends personal benefit. Her natural inclination toward helping classmates and caring for injured animals seemed to reflect the same compassionate nature that had drawn her parents to their respective professions. The speaking opportunities that began arising for Sarah and David as their story spread provided platforms for sharing insights about partnership purpose and remaining open to divine timing in both personal and professional contexts. Their presentations to educator and healthcare groups consistently emphasized that the right relationship would enhance rather than compete with professional calling, and that recognizing sacred appointments often required looking beyond surface appearances. The global perspective that developed as they encountered others with similar stories of unexpected connection and divine timing helped them understand that their experience, while unique in its details, reflected universal principles about how consciousness operates to bring together people who can serve each other's highest good and contribute more effectively to collective well-being. The wisdom traditions they explored together as their spiritual understanding deepened all seemed to contain teachings about the mysterious ways that divine intelligence operates through ordinary circumstances to fulfill extraordinary purposes. Their wrong number meeting began to feel less like romantic coincidence and more like confirmation of spiritual principles that govern how consciousness creates connection and meaning. The legacy consciousness that developed as they entered their second decade of marriage included awareness that their partnership served as evidence for others that love aligned with purpose was not only possible, but could be expected when people remained open to recognizing divine orchestration in apparent accidents and mistakes. Their story had become more than personal history. It had evolved into teaching tale that offered hope to service-oriented professionals struggling with isolation and encouragement to anyone wondering whether meaningful partnership was possible without sacrificing individual calling and contribution. The wrong number that had connected two strangers had become right connection that touched countless other lives through example and inspiration. The continuing evolution of their love, their individual growth, and their joint contribution to their communities suggested that some connections transcend ordinary relationship dynamics to become vehicles for service to something larger than personal happiness. Their wrong number had indeed connected right souls, but more than that, it had demonstrated how divine intelligence operates through the most ordinary circumstances to weave extraordinary purposes together. As they looked toward the future, both Sarah and David carried gratitude not just for finding each other, but for being chosen to demonstrate that cosmic intelligence does indeed orchestrate meaningful connections when people remain open to recognizing sacred appointments disguised as random encounters. Their teacher who called the wrong number had indeed found her partner for life. But more importantly, they had both found confirmation that love aligned with purpose represents one of the most powerful forces for positive transformation available to human consciousness. The ripple effects of their connection continued expanding through every life they touched, professionally and personally, creating expanding circles of influence that transformed apparent accident into lasting legacy of love service and faith in the mysterious wisdom that guides all authentic connection between souls who recognize each other across time and circumstance.